Thank you very much, Johnson, for joining us today.
Thank you very, very much. Keep it moving very quickly. I tend to take quite a bit of time in my presentations, but I'll keep this one flowing nicely. I think all the presenters that have come prior have actually established the fact that the future of Africa's digital economy is cloud and AI. So I will not spend a lot of time on it. I'll touch on the requirements. And then I will really focus on the infrastructure, the state of play in Africa. And then I will talk about how CASI is contributing to this rising tide of digital infrastructure and platform. So a quick thing about me, and I will move on. I've been around a while. I've touched the old internet backbones. For some of you that understand networking, the early backbone of the internet was built by UUNet, MCI, and a few others. I played a few roles on that one. Most recently, I left Facebook, where I worked with a number of you on the call, connecting the next billion to the internet. But along the way, part of my remit was Africa. And I felt that of all the continents I've touched, Africa needed this leapfrog more than any other continent. I think cloud and AI can literally change lives in Africa. So I decided to come home. In Lagos, I live now in Lagos. I left Menlo Park and left my dear friends in Silicon Valley to move back home. So it's a delight to talk to this community and be part of this community. So the future of Africa digital economy, as I said previously, is AI. And I believe for us, driving innovation around healthcare, agriculture, finance, empowering local startups, as well as global startups to solve problems and innovate, and then scale is imperative. To do so, we must tap into AI, and you've heard from Ola and the rest of the presenters on how to, and actually why. I think cloud just allows you to scale. And I will touch on that in a few minutes. Critical drivers for us. We must have broadband penetration across Africa. Africa is moving forward with that, but it is not enough. So we have to lay more fiber. We have to go from 3G, believe it or not, we have a lot of it in Africa. We still have 2G, we still have Edge, all the way to 5G to enable broadband. And we must encourage investments in digital infrastructure and human capital development. And that "and" is underlined because we need to begin to move our young people who are digital natives or already into being cloud native consumers, developers, and actually using tools, AI tools to grow. In terms of critical requirements to enable what all the presenters have talked about in Africa, we must build large-scale data centers that can run AI workloads and be able to run clouds, private clouds, public clouds. Both are needed. And hyperscale cloud or public cloud is actually quite important. It uplifts the communities that it's deployed in. We are focused on hyperscale cloud, public cloud, AI data halls, and I will talk about it in a bit. We also must have reliable energy. And as some of you that are in Lagos in Kenya, in Nairobi, in Johannesburg, and a few other cities across Africa know sometimes light goes off. And data centers and these workloads and these tools that the previous presenters and the applications that depend on them, they need baseload. They need systems that are always running, and power is required for that. Additionally, a partnership with government, from policy to public and private sector collaboration, is imperative. I think making sure that the data sovereignty and cross-border collaboration continues to evolve, making sure that privacies and early onset and education of AI ethics is in place, or at least being discussed and people being familiarized with them. Really important at the onset for Africa. And then sector-specific solutions are beginning to emerge. And I'm really excited about the presenters that went ahead of me. Tools, access to GPUs, and that's where we come in and some of my colleagues come in. And then, of course, very strong cybersecurity framework is imperative. So Africa is indeed rising in these areas. I think with Equiano anchored by Google and To Africa anchored by Facebook or Meta landing around Africa, I think we now have the subsea capacity boost to really enable cloud and subsequently AI, be it inference, be it generative, in Africa itself. And the growth and the forecast projected is actually quite decent. So the next phase is, how do you then take the bits that land on the beach and move it all the way in? How do you take the local contents and the local applications and make sure it's accessible to all the compute engines to enable the applications that these entrepreneurs, these startup, these developers are building? How do you make them accessible? So that brings up what we do and what the likes of Equinix, the likes of Digital Realty, the likes of Rack Center, ADTC, Vantage, and so on and so forth do in play. So as you can see, data center in Africa is growing. It's denominated by power. So to keep it fairly simple, data center is deployed in a location with tons of access to power because the computers eat power and eject heat. So you need power to further cool those computers, be them CPUs, GPUs, DPUs, networking switches, and so on and so forth. They all consume power. Just like you and I, eat food and drink water and inhale oxygen. That's what makes these devices go. And so it's denominated by power. And Africa is truly on the rise, and the curve looks exponential. And the market that I am in, Nigeria, is growing, and it's picking up very quickly. And we believe that the next cloud region should be this way. Let me move very quickly to what we do and use it to talk about the requirements for building these GPU centers, as well as the cloud centers. I would much rather show you pictures than give you words to digest. So within Africa, there are major players Pan-African regional data center players driving transformation in Africa's data center market. Some of you might not know that the #1 data center co-location company in the world, Equinix, is in Nigeria and is in South Africa. They acquired May1 here, and they're in South Africa. And Vantage, one of the hyperscale data center providers, is in South Africa. So Africa is beginning to pick up momentum. Digital Realty bought Terraco in South Africa for $3.55 billion USD. That's the level of importance that they attached to this market, Africa as a whole. And we are getting started, we are building, and we should be ready this year in 2005, mid-2005. So let me tell you what we're doing and how we are contributing to this infrastructure platform, digital infrastructure platform. We are building a high quality prime real estate. That's a given, but we are building it to a different requirement to be able to attract hyperscale cloud and to be able to attract global enterprises to enter this market, West Africa especially, and we have intent to scale not just in Lagos, but across Nigeria and eventually across West Africa and beyond. iChat, don't worry about it. Right off the bat, we have a staged approach in Nigeria. We're going to start in Lagos, get down to South, and deploy in Abuja. And we've been fortunate. This sector, there's significant capital flowing into this sector to solve this problem in Africa for African consumption. So a Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority has been a leader in investing into this space, especially in Nigeria. So for us, and my co-founder, of course, is Mark Adams. You can get his bio on our website. He's just an amazing innovator, a leader in our space. Was the chief strategy officer for Equinix before leaving Equinix to co-found CASI with me. Some of the fundamentals: reliable and scalable access to power. That's where we started. To build such an infrastructure, you think power first, you think power last. And for us, we are building a fairly heavy substation, 132 kV, and lots of power inside our campus. You also have to be located where significant fiber resides. So for us, it's about the fiber artery of Nigeria. So we are smack in the middle of it. And finally, you have to think about the scale that the market will need 10 to 20 years out in order to pick your location and get started small. So for us, the scale was 100 megawatt campus. We believe in about 10 plus years, such campuses will be demanded in Nigeria, if not sooner. Data centers tend to cluster quite a bit. If you're familiar with Ashburn, if you're familiar with San Jose, if you're familiar with Johannesburg, and the rest of the other places data centers have deployed, they tend to cluster quite a bit because they tend to have similar requirements. They need easy access to power and abundant power, reliable power. They need fiber. And for us to leapfrog, we really need to collocate next to the subsea cables. That's what we've done. And we've taken a large campus and we're building out. So the next generation data centers that are beginning to crop up are following suit. So I'm excited, especially along Lekki, VI, and in the mainland. So in terms of the critical portion of what will be consumed by cloud providers, by enterprises, by our solution partners, integrators, and private cloud providers, we've put together a fairly elaborate data hall. At the first go, we're delivering 6 megawatts conditioned and reliable power to the ground floor of our first building, focusing on solving power consumption scalability. And let me give you an example. For cloud computing, for cloud networking, overall cloud consumption, you tend to think in racks, right? And the requirement tend to scale from 5 kilowatt per rack all the way up to 20 kilowatt per rack. And when you have that requirement, and just for some of you that need a time to actually put this in context, an average home consumes about 5 to 10 kilowatts, right? And it's not base load. It peaks and it subsides, right? Some houses go much higher, but the average house is 5 to 10 kilowatts. So that's what goes into a single rack. That rack is 2 tiles, 600 by 1200 millimeters. That's how much power. And then it doesn't turn off because your iPhone doesn't turn off, your Android doesn't turn off. All these applications that we talk about persist. So that's just for the cloud. So you have to solve that problem. And you have to solve it to that level of scaling. And then we've also created a separate area that you can run GPU for AI workloads. And they have different requirements. So AI starts around 30 kilowatts per rack on the small GPUs, and it goes all the way to 130 kilowatts per rack. The same footprint I just mentioned. So think of how many houses that particular power in that rack will sustain. So it is a real problem, and it's a difficult problem to solve. And as we build infrastructure, we have to think deeply about how we design it, how we build it out, and how we incrementally fit it out for consumption. So that's what Cassie has really thought out very well, along with some of our partners. And but we're not waiting. We did not wait for this particular building, for this particular data center to come up. We already got started in our foundry, and I will touch on it towards the end. Now, that's the ground floor. Our first building, our first hyperscale data center, has 4 floors. The next 3 floors are for hyperscale consumption. And if you walk around, all you will see will be racks, 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 racks when it's fully fitted out. Consumes power, as I said, requires a lot of reliable connectivity to be able to sustain the workload, and then requires very robust cooling. Now, a lot of people talk about power, they don't talk about cooling. Imagine a rack ingesting 20 kilowatts, and then the cooling goes off. how long do you think before that system bursts into fire? So the most reliable setup that you can have in this data center is your cooling. And for us, we use chilled water to circulate both cool air and also extract hot air and move it up for treatment with our chillers in the roof. And we've prepared the grounds to be able to bring coolants all the way to the rack, all the way to the chip, even with the first set of AI pods that we're working on. So that's that in a nutshell. Now, how real is this? We broke ground, and Lagos State, again, collaboration with government is critical. Permits, licenses, zoning, all of that. So strong support, not just from the federal, but from the state. You have to take great care in the construction, both within the community that you operate in, as well as the people that do the work and the jobs that's created locally. Very, very important. We have the ability to drive 10x of our spend within the local community and beyond. So if it takes us $500 million to bring the entire campus to life, the expectation is that the greater community should see $5 billion, in terms of boost, and so on and so forth. And when we're fully operational, the same thing happens when the hyperscale players and the global enterprise players enter the market. You see a similar order of magnitude increment effect based on their presence. So last year, we finished the core and shell. We're in the midst of the fit out, and we should be ready to begin commissioning sometime in Q2. And this hyperscale will go live this year and start seating customers that have expressed interest. Now, we're actually doing something in preparation for that. Within our headquarters, we took portions of our headquarters and turned it into what we call the CASI Foundry. It started out as our lab, and then partners started asking to bring their equipment into it, to co-locate their solutions next to ours. And we said, why not? And then from there, the idea of actually turning it into a foundry and getting it in a condition that it can actually enable a startup, a developer anywhere, even in large companies, to go from ideation to production in our foundry. So we have hyperscale rack deployments, OCP gear, that is Open Compute Platform, pioneered by Facebook, Meta, in collaboration with the rest of the hyperscale ecosystem. We have one of those racks in our foundry. We also have a bunch of GPUs in our foundry attached to servers. We've brought it up, we've brought it down. We're now really looking for partners to come and exercise it. So I think there are GPUs in Lagos. Let's use it. Thank you so much. The rest, let's drive a Q&A.
Thank you, Johnson. So we have only.
Sorry, Fumi, just sorry to interrupt. I think before the Q&A, I wanted to just quickly show a rendering of the center, just so that folks can understand what it looks like. But please get your questions in the Q&A while that's shown.
Please go ahead. And the benefits, and I didn't dwell on it, is localizing cloud and localizing GPUs changes the game, which means that you can access it via local currency. You don't have much of a latency in terms of consumption. So you can actually have an amazing acceleration from ideation, prototype. I mean, Ola laid it out very well. You know, you can start from your laptop, host it in a foundry, have customers better test it for you, really drive it. And once it's up there, you can just, you know, continue to iterate. And then when the time comes for scaling, then you can move into a center like this that has significant scale. And you can literally run your business out of a data center like this. And that's really what enables that leapfrog for us. So it looks complex. It is indeed complex. And I tell people this is a small data center compared to global hyperscale colocation sites. And Lagos has the market. And when Lagos becomes the center of cloud region for West Africa, mostly I'll come back to you and tell you we built a little bit smaller than we should have. So this is where we were last year. And this year we are beginning to fit out, not just the inside, but the equipment are beginning to come in. It's interesting if you're in Lagos, and I will invite you to have further conversations, maybe stop in and take a tour. This is a tight pan. Those drums that you see are big cables, 500 square meter underground cables for power that will go from the TCN substation to our 132 kV substation that's being installed as we speak. So that's it in a nutshell.
Right. Fumi, you can take the questions now.
Mind's blown. My mind's blown, really blown. Okay, there's just one question for you, anyways, Johnson. And the question says, oh, there are more now. You've made impressive progress in establishing a hyperscale data center, a key step for advancing AI in Africa. However, building and maintaining such a hyperscale data center involves significant costs. How do you balance these expenses while ensuring affordability for AI innovators and organizations in Africa?
A very good question, by the way. The key to localizing, the benefits rather to localizing cloud is to make it affordable, democratize it, make it accessible to those that can use it. And for us, ahead of bringing this system up, we went ahead and created a foundry. And within that foundry, it should be accessible to most. And we've organized it such that those that need to start up can be able to easily access it, consume it, and be able to scale their business. So you have not quite an incubation area, but something that resembles it to nudge ahead, early stage companies. When we begin to scale, I think building to the right scale so that you can amortize the overall cost effectively is important. And that actually allows us to reduce our operating cost. That's one. And that's what I wake up every day thinking about. How do you really improve on the cost of energy? What are the components to allow you to improve it? How do you really automate your operations? And how do you bring people that can write code? And how do we, employ AI ourselves, not just in the development work that we do, but in our operations, because what we do is tedious. It's repetitive. These are workloads that, that are well suited for AI, seriously. And for those of you that have been in ops, you understand what I'm saying. When you do all of this and you do them at scale, the cost of operating then can be managed. That allows us to actually make it a bit more affordable for the greater community. The other is actually build programs in collaboration with the various government institutions to target specific sectors and say, listen, we are going to have sovereign cloud and AI, right? And this is how we're going to make it accessible. And this is how we intend to scale it. And this is how we're going to make data affordable to be able to drive it. I hope I answered your question.
Okay. So, Chikere, please, you can respond to Johnson's question in the chat. The next question says, is CASI focusing only on data center and colocation services, or might there be cloud services like IaaS, PaaS, etc.?
Yes, and yes. Our bread and butter is building colocation services at scale. But we're at the same time partnering with cloud providers, with AI infrastructure providers to make cloud accessible, to make GPUs accessible. So we have the virtual services area for CASI, and to also make sure that we create a marketplace where you can dial up any service that you need from any of our partners in order to build your business. I hope I answered that question. So we're not going to boil the ocean. We know what we do really well. We know what our partners do extremely well. And we go after those partners and we bring them here. And we get them into our location and we put together a business model so that cloud is accessible, so that GPUs will be accessible, model that early, all the way up to analytics engines and analytics databases being available for the various verticals. I see a question here asking about the human capital needs for us. I think we need everything. And I say it not tongue-in-cheek, right? So think about it. To maintain it, you need mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, you need super plumbers, right? You need facilities, people from security, from physical security, all the way to cybersecurity, all at scale. We also need day in, day out, net DevOps people. So I use this term, net DevOps, to connote the fact that network operations have shifted. It has merged with DevOps. So, and you link them effectively, so you cross-train. This is probably an area in Africa that we pay the least attention to, and we have the least skill set around. And we need it. And we need them in the continent, and we need them supporting the services that we have. So training up that human capital, building up that capacity is imperative. It is one of the critical key enablers for our space. And then think about it. You need the front office people. You need the human resource and the human capital, cheerleaders for us that can think in this form, and be able to grow these talent set. From accountants to legal minds that can think contracts differently. So across the board, we need to begin to build human capacity. I hope I answered one of the questions on the chat.
Yes, I think you have done that, but I'm sure Ian can. Okay, yeah, it's already. It's answered in affirmative. So there are two questions left, and I'm just going to join them together so you respond to them at once. What policies have been implemented by the Lagos state government and the federal government to support data centers? Does the data center incorporate green energy solutions in its operations?
Indeed. Let me start with the state that is hosting our first deployment, Lagos State. From the office of the governor to the office of the commissioner for science and technology to physical planning and so on and so forth. They've been wonderful. Now, the Commissioner of Science and Technology has actually taken on the role to make sure that data centers come alive in Lagos State. So you have a secondary part to escalate things. You have a partner to discuss solutions, not just for Lagos State, not just for Nigeria, solutions that can extend West Africa wide. So having that audience when things are tough, to go have really difficult conversations and then action is taken is number one. And if you are to if you want to pattern match it, it's beginning to resemble what Loudoun County did to be able to enable Ashburn to become the cloud capital of the world. Today, excess of 3 gigawatts in terms of cloud data centers in Ashburn, and it's forecasted to double very soon. And they've made it easy. They've created the easy button for data center and cloud operators to build and operate data centers, being mindful of the community, being well integrated into the community. So policies to make it easy. At the federal level, we've been in really great dialogue because it's not just building it. The state goes a long way in partnering in building licenses and permits, right? The federal government houses taxation, and taxation is just as important to induce cloud to be present. So as well as various policies and partnerships. So the fact that the sovereign wealth of Nigeria is looking at data center as a critical investment area, not just in Kasi. We're glad we are the first, and we are glad we are partnering with them. That is amazing. That sends a signal to the global market, to the global enterprises and cloud operators that Nigeria is open for business. This government is ready to partner broadly to bring cloud, public cloud, to Nigeria. And in terms of energy, Nigeria has sustainable energy, and people often do not refer to it, right? We do have hydro, we have growing solar deployments, right? And we do have ways to offset expelling and burning flaring gas. And by offsetting it, you actually get carbon credits into our system. So all of these are important. And just shifting slightly from diesel to gas is a huge step up in a market like Nigeria that do not have geothermal, for example, that do not have growing wind turbines. So there's enough sustainable power. Now we need to will it to our sites, right? And if you see my colleagues, by the way, the building that you were looking at, when cladded, those shiny things are not there for show. Those are solar panels. They happen to be interesting solar panels. So if that can improve our energy efficiency, by 10%, that's a huge win. Just to take the body of the building, parts of the building, and clad it with solar and actually consume it directly into our data center. Look for other areas that have rooftops and surfaces that receive sunlight, use them to actually collect energy and then use it to offset. One more, Chikere was inquiring about the small nuclear reactors. All of us in the data center space are really, really keeping an eye on it. It's part of the energy mix of the future.
Thank you very much, Johnson, for joining us today. Thank you very much. And with that, we're moving to the next session.